Okay, so I've got a new problem ever since I've been moving down into my basement for my new practice location, and that's cell service. Very often I find myself talking on the phone with insurance companies, clients, you name it. Problem is, I'm surrounded by both concrete and the earth. So in order to fix that, I need a really good and reliable access point. So let me show you how this is going to work. So for those of you that don't know what an access point is, it's a glorified extender or spot that broadcasts and receives a wireless signal, except it's connected by an Ethernet cable. So there's nothing interfering with it. There's no delay. This is its own separate connection, unlike a wireless extender that literally repeats the signal that's receiving, which creates a lag throughout the whole network and can cause all sorts of problems when it comes to wireless congestion. With that said, let me show you what I want to do. All right. So this is currently being used as a wireless extender, a repeater. It takes the signal from the router and rebroadcasts it down here. The problem is, it's not really reliable when it comes to my smart devices and also when I'm trying to connect using my phone. So what I want to do is take this extender and I want to move it a little bit closer to my actual practice location, which is in here. All right, so I want to mount it right here where I just made a brand new outlet spot. In order to do that, I need to take the now extender and make it into an access point by feeding it into my Ethernet system in order to connect it to this switch right here that has both Ethernet and fiber optic cables running out of it. All right, so needless to say, I had a few options when it came to how I'm going to pull this off when it comes to feeding that Ethernet cable directly into my new access point. I could have easily drilled a hole directly through the sheetrock and put a nice plate on top for a single keystone connection. Use a 3/4 inch bit, fed the Ethernet line through, and that would be it, right? Everything's said and done. However, I don't like drilling holes in the walls unless I absolutely need to. So another option would have been a low voltage, typically orange connection where you do almost like an outlet hole and that reinforces that spot and it's actually bare on the back end of it where you can actually touch over the cables versus your standard power box or outlet that obviously is shielded so people don't mess around with those connections. However, I just found this new product by Trade Select. So this product, believe it or not, is your typical outlet, except it's got one major difference, and that's the fact that it's open on the bottom. Let me take it out of its bag this way I can get a better view of it. See? So the keystones for this outlet are actually on the bottom. All right, so with that said, let's install this puppy, run some Ethernet cable, and we'll get started. Okay, so this is the Bryant Electric RJ65BKTR Trade Select J-Load tamper-resistant multimedia outlet with 2 open ports and it's supposed to accept your standard 15 amp 125 volt circuit. With that said, one of the things I want you to take note of is the angle that the outlet's on, and that's going to play an important role down the road. And I can only imagine why they have it on an angle versus it being perpendicular to the viewer, because I would have noticed this problem right away. In addition, I want you to notice this little junction box, right? This multimedia junction box, and how this looks a little foreign when it comes to what is your standard outlet box. Usually they're not steel anymore. They're usually plastic and most certainly don't have so many holes. In order to have something that receives this product with the screw holes that are not aligned in a center fashion, you would need a junction box just like this, meaning that at the very end of this project, I found out that this outlet just does not work for this application. One more thing I want to point out too is it's got 68% five-star reviews, and there's not one physical written review associated with the 11 global reviews that were given for this product. Typically, that's a red flag, right? Because I would imagine one review, including a review maybe that I'll write down the road, would probably indicate that there's a very select few applications for this product. All right, so this is a Category 8 cable capable of doing a theoretical 40 gigabytes per second. It's double shielded, which means that it's more resistant to carrying electrical signal. And that's really important because a lot of people don't realize that, yeah, if you cross one power cable in your walls, which I'm sure you will, it's not going to create that big of a difference or an effect in the line. But especially if you start crossing 2 or more, then you start getting those unidentified network error messages on your computer. So it's really important that you're aware of where you're running this and where your power cables are. All right, let's try plugging this in. All right, so the hardest part associated with plugging this in would be running the wire across my ceiling without coming across any major problems. The easiest way of doing this is to use push rods that are made out of fiberglass. Various home improvement stores actually sell these, including Harbor Freight as well. And essentially what you have is these fiberglass rods that literally just screw together. You tape one of the ends with whatever wire you're currently using, which in this case, which would be the Ethernet cable, and then just feed it through the ceiling. There are other methods of feeding wire through ceilings and walls, especially fish tape. But the problem with that, which is a coil of steel that unravels and is really good for tight to reach spaces, but the problem is the longer the feed, the more likely it's going to kink and not have any force to push, whatever wire through, plumbing or any other obstacle that kind of gets in the way. All right, perhaps one of the greatest lessons when it comes to electrical safety is to make sure that the outlet is actually off. So, to show you what an outlet that is not off looks like, let's use one of these pen testers, okay? All right, so this is essentially telling you that it is a live circuit. Now going to our circuit breaker, let's try to figure out which line this actually is. And I want to say basement. All right, so I think this is the West Basement Closet one. Yep, dehumidifier number 18. So let me shut off number 18. All right, excellent. We'll walk back. We'll repeat that same test all over again. Now, if you have a multimeter, you're more than welcome to use it. These are just a lot faster. See? Again, nothing. Nothing. Oh, the circuit is now dead. However, again, with electrical safety, never assume that a line is completely dead, even when you're handling it, even if you use testers like this. But again, if you don't know how to do any of that, your best bet is to hire a licensed electrician. It's not worth getting electrocuted over. All right. Let's take this plate off. All right. So the plate is off. I've removed the outlet. And now I'm going to be combining both ends, the line and the neutral line, together, and going to connect that to the new outlet. All right, so typically it's easier to feed the pull stick first before feeding the wire through, just in case the wire gets stuck on something. So usually if you've already pushed the push rod through all the way, there's a really good chance it's going to feed through right the first time. All right, so let's pull it the rest of the way. And there you go. All right. And of course there was fiberglass when it came to my ceiling, which made this a little bit more difficult. All right, so as you can see, I wired everything together, and I purposely didn't use a keystone when it came to having the wire travel outside of the unit itself. And very specifically, that was because of the electromagnetic radiation that would be given off by, obviously, all the wiring that's in the box. So, like I said before, this wire is going to be double shielded, so I don't want to expose as much of the wire as possible. And of course, with a keystone, that would unnecessarily expose the Ethernet cable to all that electromagnetic radiation. All right, so I drilled a 3/4 inch hole right next to the outlet. I could have, if I really wanted to, done a low voltage receptacle, just like I have in the past, where it would look a lot like this receptacle, except it wouldn't have a back to it. However, the problem is that's just a really big hole in the wall for just one cable I need to come through. So at least for now, this is good enough. I'm going to spackle it and paint it so this way it matches and just have a small little wire coming out of the wall. Again, better than, you know, a gap this big in my wall. So, all right. And for those of you that are curious about the outlet I purchased and that it doesn't work, see how the holes don't line up? The big holes? It's oblong. So this is meant for a multimedia box, not your standard receptacle. So that's a major problem, just because it's not going to work. So at least it was a good thought. I really don't want to buy the specialty junction box to go with this. So I'm just going to drill a hole right in the wall right there, a 3/4 inch hole. And that's usually big enough to fit your standard double shielded category 8 Ethernet cable. So sometimes keystone plates are really important just because you have so many Ethernet connections. As you can see, my section here is kind of Swiss cheese, but it works as long as you hide it behind a curtain. Do I get paw? Can I get a paw? Yes, thank you so much. Try again. Yes, good girl. All right. All right, and as you can see, it's our final product. Came out nice. Again, I didn't need that low voltage connection and keystone just because it's a single wire protruding from the wall. And I'm not planning on having any other future connections in that area. And at least now I can walk back and forth in my basement when it comes to being on the phone with clients.